It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
It's a very good evening, Zimbabwe. Welcome to it at ZiFM Sport on a Monday after a fantastic weekend of sport. Lots to look forward to on the show today, so we won't waste too much time because there's plenty to get through. The team that's going to get through all of that, well, Mike Madoda is here, Chris Gray is here, Sean Tafirinyika, our producer, is here, and I'm Barry Manandi. On the home front today, Zimbabwe Rugby Union have received a huge number of applications for the various posts advertised last month, whose closing date for submission was last Thursday. And in international sports news, for the second time in Super Rugby AU, the Brisbane Brumbies snatched victory from the jaws of defeat as Mac Hansen kicked a last-minute penalty to beat the Queensland Reds 22-20.
And around the world in 60, we talk in Tennessee, where Justin Thomas fired a 5 under 65 in the final round to claim a 3-shot victory in the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational in Memphis. In Florida, Russell Westbrook scored inside the final 28.5 seconds as the Houston Rockets topped the Milwaukee Bucks 120-116. And in London, Lewis Hamilton admitted he had never experienced a final lap like the extraordinary climax to his British Grand Prix after winning at Silverstone, despite completing the race with a punctured tire.
We'll then take a brief musical interlude with our play of the day. Today is Manic Monday, and then kick off the beautiful game in England, where Arsenal head coach Mikel Arteta has hailed his side's FA Cup victory over Chelsea as the greatest moment of his career. In Italy, Lazio star striker Ciro Immobile says dreams do come true after equaling Serie A's goal-scoring record and claiming the European Golden Shoe for season 2019-2020. In an update from La Liga, according to reports, Barcelona have conceded they lack the financial muscle to sign Neymar or Lautaro Martinez, warning there could be 3 or 4 years of economic strain for Europe's top clubs. And then we'll touch down in Germany, where reports out of the Bundesliga suggest it is more than likely that David Alaba will sign a contract extension with the champions Bayern Munich.
But as always, we start with our power play, and today, over the weekend, Beyonce virtually broke the internet with her video release of, I think it's called Black is King. This is from her album about the Lion King. This one's called Vat Amanzi. It's called Water. It's with Celestial and Pharrell Williams.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
We're available for conversations and to discuss and do a deep dive into all of the stories in the world of sport on cyberspace. Digital media. Yes, we are there. At Mike Idzi, at Sean Tafirinyika, at Gazaman14 for Alois, at Mark Pozzo, and at Barry Manandi for my handle. But the one you ought to follow is ZiFM Sport. At ZiFM Sport on all the platforms, we are there, including YouTube. Right, let's dive into our show today. Now, we start with rugby news, where Zimbabwe Rugby Union have received a huge number of applications for the various posts advertised last month, whose closing date for submissions was last Thursday. The highest profile of the positions is that of ZRU Director of Rugby, which has been vacant since Ntsikelelo Sibanda resigned at the beginning of the year. Other posts advertised were head coach positions for the national 15s women's team, women's under-20 team, the Zimbabwe A men's team, the under-20 men's team, and the senior women's sevens team. Also being sought are team managers for the Zimbabwe A men, women 15s, senior 7s men, women's 7s, under 20 men, and under 20 women. So lots of vacancies there. Mike Madoda, did you throw your hat into the ring?
Absolutely not, Barry. I think I've got too much on my plate at the Northern Region Soccer League as well as Golden Eagles for me to be worrying about rugby matters. But I do, of course, have what's happening at the Union, Barry. We've talked about the Union as a brand lacking capital, and their capital is diminished over the last 10 or so years because of mismanagement and as well as a drop in fortunes on the field of play. Whilst we've been extremely critical in previous shows to the Union, I think it's also proper that we should at least say that they are trying to do the right thing. They are trying to build the pyramid from the bottom going up, rather than merely concentrating on the politics that define leadership at the very top of the triangle. So I think they've started off very well. Let's hope that the process is going to be transparent. Let's also pray that they're able to pick the right individuals for these posts. It's one thing to have a whole host of people applying for jobs, but the question, Barry, that I would want to ask is, how competent are these people? How good are these people? What's their capacity? What's their ability? That's what the Zimbabwe Rugby Union should be talking about, telling us that, you know what, yes, we've had droves and droves of people applying for these posts, but we also have quality amongst those that want to seek a mandate with the Zimbabwe Rugby Union. So I think the next step is perhaps to ask the union to tell us, okay, out of those applications that you have received, out of the interest that has been shown, what sort of people are showing their interest? What sort of people have put their hand up? And can these people take the game forward? Do they have the capacity to build?
Well, Mike imploring that the process be qualitative rather than quantitative, Chris. And in truth, it's very important for that to be. But you've got to also admit that there has to be another leg as well, in the sense that the adjudicators need to also themselves be quite qualitative, because they need to be able to pick the right person, the best person for the job, don't they?
Definitely. I think when you have, first of all, the selection criteria needs to be absolutely spot on. But the people who then take a look at comparing their selection criteria to the actual candidates that have put their names into the hat, that process needs to be done by someone who has a very good grasp of what the overall goal they need to achieve is. It needs to be someone who's incredibly qualified for those particular positions, and it needs to be someone with a very good knowledge of the game and the local game and what needs to be happening in Zimbabwe rugby at the moment. So that process, it should take them a little bit of time. I think I'd be a bit worried if they very quickly found the candidates that they're looking for. It's going to take them a little bit of time sifting through those applications. Like Mike said, I think the important thing is to get the right people for the job. In Zimbabwe, we take a look at we like titles. We like to say, oh, he was the coach at X and the coach at Y. But I think they really need to look at what each individual has achieved in their particular tenure in whatever role it is that they're using to reference as a reference point for the position that they've applied for. I think it's important to take a look at individuals who show growth, individuals who show that they've done quite a bit in terms of their learning and their qualifications. So kudos to them for actually getting the process going, but we're going to need to see that they're doing a really good job in terms of actually that selection process, and hopefully we don't hear anything about any dodgy business in terms of these applications.
I think Chris makes a fine point, Barry, there, that it's more than just your experience that matters. It's about what you did during those years. You know, it's one thing to put your hand up and say, you know, I've got 30 years experience in the game. What did you achieve in those 30 years? What did you build? You know, that's what's actually more important. So you can find someone who's got 5 years in the game who could have achieved a lot more than you have in your 35 years. So I think people shouldn't just buy into this whole thing. You know what, experience counts for nothing if you've done very little to achieve anything in those years.
Yeah, there are teams from a football perspective who've been in Division 2 for the past 20 years, and I think you need to ask yourself a few questions if that is the case. Nonetheless, we're talking about rugby, and rugby is sounding the right sort of notes. Did you get that, Michael?
I got it. Subtly put, Barry. Subtly put.
Sibiso Made, the CEO at the union, had this to say, and I think, guys, this sort of shows that I think the union has finally made a decision to align all of its processes and make sure that they do the right thing, because this is a direct quote from him. He says, there's been an overwhelming response to the post we advertised. The applications will now go through the Technical and Appointments Committee. The committee will look at each application to see if it meets the criteria for the particular post, the key being the criteria. Virtual interviews will most likely be conducted given the COVID-19 restrictions. And then there are applications which are still being accepted, of course. Those include that of the Cheetahs head coach, which will close on the 17th of August. So I think those big posts are still available.
You know what? One thing I would love to see, Barry, in the world of sports is people beginning to try and bring the fans into the process a bit more. I think, especially in this digital era, is it possible for presentations to be made before as part of the interview process, where an individual can sell themselves and sell their vision and sell basically their game plan to fans and say, this is my vision for the game. This is the things that I want to do, because I always believe that sport so many times pushes the fans to the side. It's almost as if the fans don't matter. You have very little knowledge. The only thing we want is your money. But other than your money, we don't want you involved in anything. But I would love to see a process where these guys are making online presentations, almost like the US presidential debate style. Right. And yes, whilst we may not be the ones that make the eventual call at the end, because the interview process must proceed in the official manner, but I would love to see these guys, Barry, also sell their vision and people buy into, because half the time what happens, like what you saw with the demise of Chiangwa and then Felton Kamambo assuming power at 53 Livingston Avenue, is that whilst Chiangwa was an unpopular president and he left the game, and then Kamambo came on board, but Kamambo has never really done anything to sell himself to the fans, and that is why he is just as unpopular as Chiangwa was in the eyes of the fans, and the fans are saying that Kamambo must go, because there's been very little engagement with the fans, and yet the fans are actually the very foundation on which sport is built.
Mike makes a very important point, and I'll probably say that Kamambo is threatening to be even less popular than Chiangwa, in fact. Possibly not even match Chiangwa.
And that takes doing. That takes doing, to be honest.
That takes a lot of doing. Compliments to the man, kudos to him. But Mike makes a very important point, Chris, in the sense that the fans need to become part of the process. And where we've seen the fans become part of the process, we've seen success follow, and I think of examples like Barcelona. But doesn't it Barcelona Football Club, that is, doesn't it also call for the fact that, and you look at the example of elements such as Barcelona Football Club, where the fans literally, almost in inverted commas, run the club through the election of the president and so on and so forth. Doesn't it call, therefore, for the fans to organize themselves and be an organized grouping that can actually be called upon? Because right now, how do you call upon the fans?
It's tricky. I think in order for you to have an organized fan base, you need an organized association to start with, an organized union, which is what we're seeing taking place at the moment. So after that, when fans start to see, okay, there's some progression and this is something we can get behind, then they'll begin to organize themselves. But it's not complicated to, for example, in this situation, get buy-in from fans. There's multiple platforms where you can have fan engagement, and not even from the perspective of them it being live or anything. You can have YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The list is endless where these people can actually present their ideas. So in terms of getting fans behind them, it's not a complicated process, but it needs to start with an organized union, which is what we're starting to see.
Yeah, the ZRU is getting organized themselves, because you look at it, they are still in the process of distributing food, hampers and mealie meal to players as well as officials. The items were bought using the World Rugby Food and Medical Relief Fund, where €5,000 were made available to ZRU through Rugby Africa. While distribution was done in the southern region, in the northern part of the country, the process has still not been completed since there are restrictions in place to fight COVID-19. So rather than try and parcel out money, what they decided to do was actually buy the food that people so richly need in this time of need. ZRU sounding the right chords.
Hi, this is Benjamin Locke. I'm on the Zimbabwe Davis Cup team, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
All right, let's give you some local sports news. Roundup for you, starting with tennis, where coach Emmanuel Mulalazi, who died on Thursday at a local hospital at the age of 42, was laid to rest yesterday. Mulalazi, well known in tennis circles as Coach MP, passed away due to high blood pressure and diabetes complications. At the time of his death, he was coaching at Emakhandeni Tennis Club and SOS Primary School. Witness Giane, the chairman of Emakhandeni Tennis Club, described the late Mulalazi as an enthusiastic mentor who was willing to advance tennis in Bulawayo's western suburbs, with his desire being to bring back the National Tennis Development Initiative, which existed in the 1980s. May his soul rest in peace. In cricket news, former Zimbabwe seamer Blessing Muzarabani says he chose to abandon his international career at a young age in order to become a better player after signing a co-pack deal with English county side Northamptonshire. The lanky Highfield-born cricketer feels he made the right choice, as it will help him understand the game better. After making his test debut for Zimbabwe in 2017 against South Africa as a raw 20-year-old, Muzarabani chose to walk away a year later. During his short-lived international career, the Quick made just one test cap and played in 18 one-day internationals and 6 T20 internationals. In news out of the Casablanca Premier Soccer League, the top-tier domestic football in the land, Warriors coach Zdravko Logarusic has been impressed by the Europe-based Warriors quartet led by captain Knowledge Musona, but is still scratching his head over the uncertainty surrounding the start of the domestic premiership. Most European leagues, including those in Turkey and England, have managed to finish their seasons with teams playing in empty stadiums in the new normal following a 3-month hold due to the coronavirus outbreak. And Logarusic is a happy man after closely monitoring the four, including skipper Knowledge Musona.
Hi, this is Mike Madura, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z. From the front of the grid to the back of the net, it's ZiFM Sport. International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play.
Don't forget, you can always keep abreast of what's happening in the world of sport by following us on Twitter at ZiFM Sport. We are also on Facebook, the same handle at ZiFM Sport. Now let's get into the rugby, and there was plenty of it this past weekend, and this time we are down under in Australia, where the Brisbane Brumbies' Mark Hansen kicked an 83rd minute penalty to secure a 22-20 victory over the Reds in Canberra on Saturday, as the Brumbies remained unbeaten in Super Rugby AU. The Brumbies had been kept scoreless in the second half until replacement hooker Cornell McLenny crashed over from an attacking line-out in the 75th minute. Hansen missed the sideline conversion, but then calmly slotted the winning penalty from about 40 meters deep into extra time. What a game. What an absolute barnstormer this game. I mean, a clash between two of Australia's heavyweights, and it took a kick 3 minutes into added time at the very end of the game, Barry, to settle this one. And unfortunately, it was another heartbreaking loss for the Queensland Reds, who thought they'd done just about enough to bag a win versus the Brumbies.
Let me borrow the phrase that Brendan Rodgers used to use the time he was at Liverpool: character by the Brumbies. Listen, to be able to keep the concentration, keep the pressure up, because there's a danger. Yes, in as much as the Reds felt that they had done enough and had gotten over the line and could hold on, the Brumbies, it takes a lot also to still believe that albeit that there's very little left on the scoreboard in terms of time. There's a lot to do. It takes a lot to still believe that you can, and the Brumbies have certainly shown that over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the Brumbies remaining unbeaten in the Australian domestic competition. And they've actually won 4 games and moved to 18 points, 7 ahead of the Reds. Chris, the Reds coming into this, they hadn't won in Canberra since 2014. And even though they struggled in the first half, in the second half, they were a different side and they played some good rugby. But the problem is, if the good play doesn't translate into points, you leave yourself vulnerable to these sucker punches at the end.
Definitely. Started that second half, 2014 lead, just 10 minutes into the second half. And that shows you just how they came back with such incredible intensity in that second half. But they weren't able to hold on, which I think was a crying shame for them. They had played such a brilliant second half of rugby. But it's those last few minutes where I think in each and every single rugby game, those last few minutes are exactly what count. Are you able to hold on and get yourself across the line?
Absolutely. Let's go back to Friday's result. EC Naisarani scored a try in super time as the Melbourne Rebels sealed a 25-20 win over the Western Force in Sydney. The Big Wallabies, number 8, dotted down from close range after an intense build-up from the kickoff of super time, a new rule that sends a game into an extra 5 minutes each way if tied at full time, with the first to score winning the game. So after those 2 matches, how does it look like in Super Rugby AU? The Brumbies 4 out of 4, perfect, 18 points. They lead the way in first position, followed by their victims this past weekend, the Reds, who are in second on 11 points. The Melbourne Rebels are in third on 10 points, and then the Waratahs in fourth. They've been really disappointing, just the solitary victory in their 4 matches, 6 points on the board. And then bringing up the rear in fifth place is the Western Force. As expected, they are struggling. Played for 1-0, lost all 4, and just the 2 bonus points to talk about. Your weekend fixtures this coming weekend, your Rebels will entertain the Brumbies. That should be a really good game, that one in Melbourne. And then in Sydney, it'll be the Waratahs entertaining the Queensland Reds. The Western Force have a bye. Let's briefly go into New Zealand, Barry. Just taking a look at how things are looking like there. We have been, of course, following with keen interest Super Rugby at Aroa. The Crusaders continue to impress. The Blues are hot on their heels after having won this past weekend versus the Highlanders. But, of course, the Crusaders have got that game in hand. You've got to say that if there's one side that can catch the Crusaders, it will have to be the Blues. And they're going to have to play well or hope that the wheels come off for the Crusaders in order for them to win at Aroa.
Absolutely, and you look at how the Crusaders are going there, they're going to be a tough act to catch, but as you quite rightly point out, the Blues themselves are absolutely making a fist of it, and I was very impressed by their performance over the weekend. In particular, Beauden Barrett at fly half, he was phenomenal. He made the right decisions. He was the X factor player that we know him to be, and put a proper imprint on that game. Listen, it's all to play for. All you can do is, if you're chasing, all you can do is get your results. The Blues have been doing exactly that.
And of course, in that game you talked about, Barry Finlay Christie scored an early try in each half as the Blues beat the Otago Highlanders 32-21 in Dunedin yesterday. And of course, that result keeping the race for the domestic title alive. The Crusaders themselves, the champions, they bounced back from their first loss in the competition to win versus the Waikato Chiefs 32-19 in Hamilton. Your weekend fixtures, the Wellington Hurricanes will entertain the Chiefs in Wellington at the Cape Tin, and then the Canterbury Crusaders will welcome the Otago Highlanders. Chris, if the Crusaders win that game, surely it's over, bar the shouting.
Basically, I think the Crusaders have done enough. They've been pretty dominant this season. Like you said, only the Blues would be able to catch them up on this one, but I think the Crusaders are pretty much good to go for this, especially in this next encounter, and this is definitely one that they can say they'll be able to get over the line.
Hi, my name's Ryan Cairns, Sunshine Tour professional golfer, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
A
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
Around the World in 60 is proudly brought to you by DSTV. We'll take off in Tennessee, where Justin Thomas fired a 5 under 65 in the final round to claim a 3-shot victory in the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational in Memphis. The 27-year-old American, who will now return to the world number 1 spot, started the day 4 strokes off the lead in 5th place at the TPC Southwind, but edged clear of a packed leaderboard in the closing stages to finish on 13 under 267 to score his 3rd PGA Tour win of the season and 13th overall. We'll head over to Florida, where Russell Westbrook sank 4 free throws inside the final 28.5 seconds as the Houston Rockets topped the Milwaukee Bucks 120-116. Westbrook scored a team-high 31 points while adding 8 assists, and his clutch effort at the charity stripe enabled the Rockets to outlast the Bucks down a back-and-forth closing stretch. Daniel House Jr. converted 2 free throws with 14 seconds left as the Rockets finished off 27 of 31 from the line. We'll touch down in London, where Lewis Hamilton admitted he had never experienced a final lap like the extraordinary climax to his British Grand Prix after winning at Silverstone, despite completing the race with a punctured tyre. In an astonishing end to what had otherwise been a processional race up front at Silverstone, the 2 front-running Mercedes cars suffered front tyre delaminations after long stints on hard tires. Don't miss the full Formula One report on tomorrow's show.
Hi, I'm Warriors coach Zdravko Logarušić, and you are listening to ZiFM Sport.
Sports with a difference. Z. The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Oh, back here's Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudent. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles it home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
All eyes were on London this past weekend. Cup football action, the FA Cup, the greatest competition in European football, they say, played out in front of an empty stadium, but it will be full of memories for Arsenal's players as they got the better of Chelsea 2-1 in that Wembley final, and their head coach Mikel Arteta has hailed his side's FA Cup victory as the greatest moment of his career, and he's vowed to build his side around 2-goal hero Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. The Gunners won the FA Cup for a record 14th time, while they also became the first club to beat a specific opponent in as many as 3 finals in the competition. Let's hear from the hero of the hour, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who says his team deserved the victory.
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone gave their best today from the team, and yeah, we deserve it. The journey has been long, but I think today we enjoy this great game. Great evening. I will enjoy all night for sure. It was a poor start, but then I think everyone's react with a good attitude, and yeah, we did it.
Z.
Well, I think one of the easiest tasks there, Barry, was to pick the man of the match, and no doubt it was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Brought Arsenal back into the contest, and then he won them the cup with an absolutely fantastic finish. And Arsenal, victors, unlikely victors, because we go back to the semi-finals. No one gave them a chance to get over Man City, and no one gave them a chance as well in many circles versus Chelsea. A lot of people thought Chelsea were the clear favourites in this competition.
Especially with Chelsea going up 1-up in that final, everybody thought that, well, okay, this is going to be just a blue wave and a blue tide that's going to run over or wash over the Gunners. But they showed great character. They showed great application. I think the methods of the coach are finally being seen more clearly than ever before, because you could see the way that they controlled the match, the way they controlled the ball, the strategy in which they used. You could see that they were trying to move their opponents into various areas while trying to pick that diagonal to Nicola Pepe. And so I feel that when Arteta, when Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang say that they deserve to win, I can't argue with them. They certainly look like the better side on the afternoon.
Now, Chris, unfortunately, we didn't have you on the show on Friday, but one of the things that we discussed was that the side that defended better was likely to have an edge in this contest and was likely to win this contest. And if you take a look at the stats, they are telling. Arsenal preventing Chelsea from having any shots on target after the 10th minute, committing no fouls in the first half. In fact, their first foul was in the 55th minute of this contest. So Arsenal defended better than Chelsea. They have been good defensively in matches of late. And yes, we talk about Aubameyang winning the game because he scored the 2 goals. But in truth, the very foundation of this victory was their solid defending.
Definitely. I think that's what made the difference between the two teams. If you take a look at both Chelsea and Arsenal, these are both attacking sides. These are both teams that majority of their players going forward, but being able to defend, especially in a cup final like this, is critical, and that's exactly why Arsenal managed to win this particular match. I think it's very clear in terms of Mikel Arteta's tactics, just how good he is, first of all, from that Manchester City win, and coming into this, being able to manage the game after, I think, the first 20 minutes or so, all of the adjustments that he made. I think we're starting to see that he's able to manage games incredibly well, especially under pressure, like in this particular match.
Barry, let's talk about Chelsea. Chelsea got the ideal start, out of the blocks very quickly, leading 1-0 against a team that many people thought didn't have character, a team that many people thought, listen, if you score first against Arsenal, the likelihood is that they will crumble under the weight of pressure. But it was Chelsea, in fact, that imploded. And they were not helped by the fact that 2 key players got injured and had to be substituted.
Yeah, look, let's attribute this Chelsea loss to a combination of factors. The first one being unlucky, like you quite rightly point out, losing Cesar Azpilicueta and Pulisic to hamstring injuries. It wasn't ideal there. 2 of their best players, their Pulisic in terms of being one of their best players, Cesar Azpilicueta, who adds that stability and experience to the side. So not ideal that they lost those players. The other factor that I think comes into here is Frank Lampard's management as a whole. In terms of this game specifically, let's not stretch beyond this. I feel that some of the decisions and changes that he made, some of the options in terms of whether to sit back and defend or try and press high, try to continue with his style. He opted to sit back, let Arsenal have the ball, and I feel that might have been the wrong way to go. Perhaps others would say that he didn't have the personnel on the field to then be able to press effectively, but I think you shouldn't abandon your tactics. Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp have all shown us that when you have a way, that way has got to work no matter who's on the field. So perhaps there's a bit of work that needs to be done in Chelsea, and it showed glaringly on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, those 2 injuries were to the captain, Cesar Azpilicueta, the man who brought down Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to bring Arsenal back into the game with a penalty. And then Christian Pulisic, he pulled his hamstring and he was also, of course, had to be stretchered off for Chelsea. Now, there was a lot of joy in the red half of London, and it was really captured in the former striker, the legendary Ian Hart, a man that I love so much. This guy is one of the entertainers of football punditry, and he was very pleased with Arsenal winning the FA Cup. Let's hear from Ian Wright.
But at the same time, the pressure on him to win this game, to try and get Arsenal back into Europe, with the squad and what he's had to do with that squad from Christmas to now, what Unai Emery left, and the way he's changed it around, he's got the guys on board with what they're doing. You can see how hard they're working. They're doing a lot more work without the ball, and they've got obviously a world-class striker, so that if they are resolute, they can get the win, and that's what they've done today. Now you just want him to get backed out. I'm hoping that he's trying to keep his cards close to his chest, but obviously him and the manager have been speaking, and the manager, look as confident as he looks, may know obviously more than we know, but it seems to me that judging by Mikel Arteta's body language and the way he speaks, he believes he's going to stay. He said he wants to build a team around him, and I hope that happens.
Z.
Chris, Ian Wright, cock-a-hoop there, and rightfully so. Arsenal have won. They extend their record in this competition, and they've got some silverware to show for their rebuilding, and they'll take this forward, and they'll be very confident that, you know what, this project is moving in the right direction. And one of the things that they're going to try and do very much in the off-season is, of course, make sure that they retain the services of Aubameyang.
Definitely. I think he's going to be critical if this rebuilding project is going to go in the direction that they wanted to. He's scored 22 goals in this season, and of those 22 goals, those were from 17 matches that Arsenal actually managed to win. So this keeping him is going to be critical, and we've had Mikel Arteta coming out and actually saying that he's going to be building the team around Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. So hopefully they're able to retain him. I don't think it's a question of if. I think they definitely need to retain him, pay him whatever they need to pay him, and ensure that he remains at Arsenal. We've heard of talk from across Europe, Italy, Spain as well, where there are teams that have been inquiring about him supposedly. So hopefully they're able to keep him, and this is going to be critical to their rebuilding project.
Barry, one of the greatest things that Arsenal could have done was to name him captain of the side. Go back to 2005, Steven Gerrard in a similar situation to Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. It wasn't contractual. It was simply a case of a young Gerrard and his ambitions. Mourinho came in, threw money at Steven Gerrard, threw money at Liverpool. Steven Gerrard had allegedly actually bid farewell to his teammates and informed them that he would be joining Chelsea. And then at the 11th hour, he changed his mind because, you know what, Liverpool went on to win in Istanbul. And then there were sort of like the trappings there that the future could be successful, and he held on to that. Aubameyang is in a similar situation, isn't he? Where, you know what, this FA Cup victory makes it almost very hard, and the fact that he's captain, for him to walk away.
I love your positivity, Mikey, because in truth, that's looking at the glass half full. Let me try and look at it half empty, because Arsenal themselves are classically reputed for losing captains. Recall yourself, their current manager, Mikel Arteta, he left them when he was at the armband. So did Cesc Fabregas as well when he went across to Barcelona. So they can be quite unlucky in terms of losing captains. But that's just me being schneid about it. In truth, there's no reason why Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang should leave. There are green shoots that show that this team is headed in a particular direction. One key component is going to assist in him deciding that he's made the right decision to stay, and that is, number one, the money that and trust that Arteta is given in the market. Whether Edu is part of that process or not, we'll leave to one side. But as long as they give him money to trade in the market. Secondly, to make sure that they get rid of Mesut Ozil. He is a cancer in that club. They're going to take a huge cut on it. They're paying him huge wages at the moment. Those huge wages should actually directly go to Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. And if those decisions are made, then he's making the right decision to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one that we'll certainly be keeping an eye on in the next few weeks. Aubameyang, does he stay? Does he go? Is reported to want a 3-year deal, which will take him through to the age of 34 with earnings of £250,000 per week. Very, very interesting, this one. Remember, Mesut Ozil is on 350, so you can't blame Aubameyang for wanting to be pushed further and further nearer the highest earner at the club, who's not playing any football at the moment. And in fact, he was in the FA Cup final from a holiday in Turkey. So it makes perfect sense what Barry has said. Get Ozil off that wage bill. Free up space, not just for Aubameyang, but also for decent players that should come in during this transfer window. One of them, Thomas Partey at Atletico Madrid. He has been reported to be showing interest.
The Nerazzurri, the Black and Blues, Inter Milan.
It's Romelu Lukaku, and it was never in doubt. He's a beast at the best of times, but this season he has become a monster.
The Giallorossi, the Yellow and Reds, AS Roma.
Velotti has a go! Tremendous hit! That's what he's capable of.
La Viola, the purple ones, Fiorentina.
Franck Ribéry seals a glorious win for Fiorentina with a sumptuous goal at San Siro.
The Bianconeri, the black and whites, Juventus.
Ronaldo seals yet another 3 points for Juventus.
Tough yet colourful, the best of Italian football on Z.
Over to Italy, where incidences and occurrences in Italy affected the rest of Europe, because Lazio star Ciro Immobile said dreams do come true after equaling Serie A's goal-scoring record and claiming the European Golden Shoe for 2019-2020 season. Immobile tied Gonzalo Higuain's record for the most goals in a Serie A season with 36 after scoring in Saturday's 3-1 loss to Napoli. The 30-year-old Italy forward matched the feat achieved by Higuain in the 2015-16 season, while also collecting the coveted Golden Shoe Award for the highest goal scorer in European football. Claiming it, of course, over a very illustrious company. He's got 36 goals. Robert Lewandowski has got 34 goals. He's done phenomenally well as Ciro Immobile. I was cheering him on. I wanted him to break the record, but equaling it is equally as astounding, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic effort from Ciro Immobile, and the fact that he's done it at Lazio. It's not one of the traditional big boys, as it were. He's not playing for a title-winning team like Juventus, where the goals come in and the opportunities are there thick and fast. He's done it at the Lazio side. Yes, a decent Lazio side. But also, Barry, you watched the game and you've been watching Lazio as well a bit. You'd have noticed that he's got his start point in attack for me, is very
bizarre.
Very bizarre, because he's almost a winger. His start point, he's almost operating as a winger. So for me, just goes to show you that he's got a nose for goal and he knows when to arrive in the box in time to take the chances. And that's what it takes if you're going to break these records, for you to score 30 goals in Serie A, which traditionally and classically has always been the most difficult league in which to score. So he does have a nose for goal, and he's shown it. And for him to be sitting on 36 goals, Barry, tied that record thing that Gonzalo Higuain set in 2015-2016 is credit to Ciro Immobile. We talked about Cristiano Ronaldo more than we did about Ciro Immobile when we talked about going for the record, and it's Ciro who embraced the challenge and was unlucky not to break it. He had 70 minutes in truth, but the problem is, as the game went on, Napoli got better and better defensively.
Yeah, Napoli shored things up at the back, and when you got the talents of Kalidou Koulibaly at the back there, you generally can trust that you're not going to let many through. Ciro Immobile himself still getting that one goal in that match against Napoli. And Mike making a very important point there, Chris, in the sense that it works at Lazio. It's not as if he's like the arrowhead, because you find that Correa probably plays in more advanced positions, but Ciro Immobile just knows how. And in truth, I think perhaps he's one of those less celebrated heroes and stars, when in actual fact we're thinking about names like Ronaldo, but in the same league we got a Ciro Immobile who's doing the business.
Definitely, and the reason for that, like Mike pointed out, is that he's at an almost lesser club, as it were. Lazio is not one of the clubs, especially out here, that we talk up quite a bit, and so he almost suffers from that, where we don't give him the kudos that he deserves because of the club where he is. But to be able to score that many goals and from that position means you have to be a special talent for you to be able to do that. So he definitely deserves the kudos and definitely deserves that award.
Barry, I just want to come in and point out that in the last couple of weeks we've heard from two very influential voices in European football. First, Florentino Perez out at Real Madrid say because Karim Benzema had scored 21 or was it 22 goals in La Liga, he should win the Ballon d'Or. And then we heard just this past week Karl-Heinz Rummenigge come out and make the case for Robert Lewandowski on the basis that he had scored 34 goals. How come we're not hearing any noises about Ciro Immobile scoring 36 goals in the media? Surely if they can be talked up as possible Ballon d'Or candidates and the best players in the world, so should Ciro Immobile, who's playing for a lesser team. Because I asked the question, I always like to look at it this way. If you take your Jamie Vardy and you put him at Juventus, does he not score 30 goals?
Easily.
He does.
Easily. If you put Jamie Vardy at Bayern Munich, does he not score 34 goals?
Quite easily.
Quite easily. So sometimes I think we need to be concentrating more on how these players actually play rather than the mere statistics that they've scored goals. Because, you know, I take a look at the ability to finish, and I'll go to Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Ronaldo's had a bang average season.
Average,
okay?
Yeah.
Bang average. It's been bang average. He's scored goals, but the season has been bang
penalties.
Yeah, penalties and goals that were, to be honest, any other striker in his place would have scored. But if you take a look at players that have really performed well and played really well, I think Timo Werner, for me, played really well, scoring those 28 goals at Leipzig in a lesser team than Bayern Munich. I think his goals, you've got to put a premium on his goals and the amount of goals that he has scored. So I think sometimes we need to broaden the discussion beyond just mere statistics when we're talking about the individual accolades.
And I hope somebody's listening out there, because if we're just talking about goal scoring, there is a golden shoe that is there for the goal scorers. I think the Ballon d'Or and those accolades for playing should actually be rated on the play that a player particularly does on the green grass. So Ciro Immobile, golden shoe winner in Europe. In second position, of course, Robert Lewandowski in third. Robert Lewandowski with 34 goals, and then Cristiano Ronaldo on 31 in third. And fourth position, of course, is Timo Werner, who was out of Red Bull Leipzig in that golden shoe conversation. In Serie A, the top scorers, the Campo Cannonieri, the Italian Golden Boot winner, Ciro Immobile on 36 goals. Cristiano Ronaldo for La Signora Vecchia, 31 goals he got this past season. Romelu Lukaku in third on 23 goals. Just to wrap up, dot the I's, cross the T's, as it were, for Serie A. This past weekend's results in the last leg or round of matches, round 38 in Serie A. Brescia 1-1 draw with Sampdoria. Juventus beaten by Roma 3-1 at home. And then Cagliari 2-0 over AC Milan. Napoli 3-1 over Lazio. That's the result we were talking about earlier. Fiorentina 3-1 over Spal. Bologna 1-1 draw with Torino. A 3-0 win for Genoa against Hellas Verona. Parma 4-3 over Lecce. And then Udinese beating Sassuolo 1-0. And Inter Milan beating Atalanta 2-0 in their final game. Champions League, Juventus champions. Inter Milan qualify for the Champions League along with Atalanta and Lazio, and into the Europa League go Roma and AC Milan. Relegated Lecce, Brescia and Spal.
Quick updates out of Italy and Germany. According to reports, Barcelona have conceded they lack the financial muscle to sign Neymar or Lautaro Martinez, warning there could be 3 or 4 years of economic strain for Europe's top clubs. Until the coronavirus pandemic arrived in Europe, Barcelona looked sure to make a major play for Inter striker Martinez in the closed season. They might also have been tempted by a fresh attempt to bring back Neymar from PSG 3 years after the Brazilian left the Camp Nou. In Germany, reports suggest that it's more likely that David Alaba will sign a contract extension with Bayern Munich. The 28-year-old's current deal with the Bavarians runs out next year, leading to several top European clubs being linked to the Austria international. However, Bild has claimed that Alaba sat down for constructive talks with Bayern's sporting director Hasan Salihamidzic and chairman Karl-Heinz Rummenigge recently.
All right, that's all we have time for. We're back tomorrow with Top Hit Tuesday. Don't miss it. And don't forget, we've got our Formula One report brought to you by Zimoko. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manande, out.
And it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
The biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.